Hi everybody, welcome to this webinar on why the packaging industry needs to catch up. This is a digital version of a talk we've done a few times at various events recently. For those of you who don't know the company yet, Chili Publish is a software development company out of Belgium with offices in Brussels and New York. We have a very strong focus on software development, over 20 people focused on developing one single product, and we are quite unusual for a software startup. We are profitable with 30% year-on-year growth. Our customers are found in various market segments, ranging from digital printers all the way to newspaper print, both in B2B and B2C areas. And our customer types are typically anything ranging from smallish digital printers or agencies all the way up to international brand owners. Our sales strategy is to go through integrators, OEM partners, and solution providers. The spread of our customers is as follows. Most of our customers are in Belgium, our home market, and in the United States, and there's a significant market share in France, the UK, and then from then on it levels off and spreads out nicely over the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. You'll find our channel worldwide. We are in most countries in Europe, the Americas, and Asia Pacific these days. We have one product, which is Chili Publisher, a powerful and flexible online document editor, which is always embedded into a workflow, internal or external. It's a pure integration product and can be used by professional and non-professional users alike. The integration is shown in this sketch here. The bottom right part is what we don't do. That's all the transactional stuff like shopping carts or payment engines or logistical management and stuff like that. We don't do that. We build our editor. We started inside a solution as an iframe, and then we edit documents, the top left, through our API. Let's talk about some USPs. First of all, workspaces. You can make Chili Publisher look and behave like you want it to. There's a couple of interface possibilities. First of all, you've got the admin workspace. That's the full toolkit. Now, the full toolkit is very, very extended. There's more tools than you would typically expect in an online document editor. Actually, it's more tools than you would expect in a desktop editing solution. You can limit the availability of those tools for the end user as an administrator. So you as an admin decide which tools the end user gets access to. It's a customized limited set. And you can also build your own from scratch. Using JavaScript, using the API, you can build your own interface, and there are no limitations to that whatsoever. Another USP is constraints, where you as an admin can decide which parts of a document an end user can change. There's document constraints, so you can limit access to a document, a specific page, or a specific layer on that page. And there's even frame constraints where you limit the access to individual frames and frame content. So it's not even binary. You don't just say you can edit or you can't edit. You can actually determine in which way the end user can edit that. You can only change content, you can only move it left and right, you can only move it within a specific area, etc. Another USP is document intelligence. You can make your documents intelligent by using variables. Variables can be validated. You can apply copy fitting so that the font size reduces to make sure that everything fits into a text frame. We can use data sources like your DAM system, your PIM system, a database, even Excel and simple XML files. We can integrate document actions that are triggered when a specific variable is changed. Anchoring allows you to determine the position of an element in a document based on the position and size of another element in a document. There's auto grow. If the text box is too small, just let it grow in a specific direction with a maximum and minimum, and many, many more. Finally, our API is a very important sales point. It allows you to integrate Chili Publisher into any solution. We integrate very easily into anything. We use web services for that, standard SOAP web services, so any front-end developer knows how to do that. There are editor events that I can monitor. We have a document object model, and we can use external resources like snippets, documents inside other documents, assets, data sources, and XML. Good, so much for the introductions. On with the show. Let's start with a little bit of history. Mass production is not new. We've been doing it for thousands of years. This is a bronze trigger mechanism from a crossbow from the Han Dynasty in China, but it really changed in 1842. This is the 1842 Springfield musket. By that time, the Springfield musket had been a workhorse for the American military for 60 years. So what's different between this model, the 1842, and the previous one, the 1795? Well, it was produced using different manufacturing techniques with a real emphasis on machine-made parts and parts interchangeability, which meant you could change the trigger and lock mechanism of this rifle without having to adapt the rifle and or the lock mechanism. This was the first time that parts became truly interchangeable and that were mass-produced to a standard that allowed that. It worked, and we went absolutely crazy. So Ford said you can have any color as long as it's black. And we started applying that kind of thinking to every aspect of industrial production. So first thing we did is we simplified your job, you despecialized it, you cut it into very, very small pieces that can be done by anyone. And by doing that, you reduce dependency on skilled labor. Then you start optimizing. And this is a little film from the Gilbreth time of motion studies where somebody's stamping a date on documents. And they basically they film the guy, they take his movement, they study it, and then they optimize it to see how they can get more output out of that. So by changing to a two-handed motion pattern, he then gets a lot more output. And they can go even further, 61% more output than the two-handed method if he starts using a foot. Notice how he's no longer wearing a jacket, probably because he's getting very hot and sweaty. After you've done that despecialization, after you've done the optimization, you have two further options. Either you move to a low-cost country, you outsource it or you offshore it, or you can automate. And the only reason why Dyson is able to produce locally in Europe is because his factory is completely automated. And all those fancy, expensive vacuum cleaners are built in a factory that has virtually no humans. Now, Germany, the country where most of these talks have taken place, had played a big role in the automation and industrial production story. In 1879, there were tariffs introduced called the Rhine Iron Tariffs, and that caused a major reduction of imports in order to protect Germany's own industries. Now, the UK government was annoyed by this, and they said, well, there's a Merchandise Act now, and you have to mark all of these products to say that they were made in Germany so that consumers can make an educated choice on whether they want the continental imported products or they want the homemade superior products. And that meant that all the products from Germany had to get this made in Germany label. Now, you don't associate that with Germany. Germany in the 1800s was supposed to look like this, and it was supposed to have sheep and be very romantic. But in 1914, the Werkbund exhibition by Walter Gropius and Adolf Meyer in Cologne, it was called From Sofakissen zum Städtebau, from the sofa pillow to the building of cities. The plan was to integrate traditional crafts and industrial mass production techniques to put Germany on a competitive footing with England and the United States. So what they did is they got together a bunch of artisans, a bunch of industrialists, a bunch of artists, and they said, how could we take these techniques and leverage them for mass production? That led to the formation of the Deutsches Institut für Normung, the DIN Institute. Its most well-known standard was the DIN 476, which is the standardization of paper sizes, and that led to the standardization of cabinet sizes and optimized office work dramatically. So now, this Made in Germany label that was originally intended to protect British customers from so-called inferior goods has been recognized as a symbol of quality and engineering throughout the world. So mass production became a huge success, so much so that there was a movement against it called the Arts and Crafts movement in the UK. It was a movement that wanted more romantic times, that wanted more handmade stuff, more artisans, more artistry, and less automated production. They even had their own font. The Dove's font was designed by a guy called Thomas Cobden Sanderson. His print shop was located right next to the Dove pub. Now, he hated the mechanical industry, and he said, I don't want this type to be ever used in a press pulled otherwise than by the hand and arm of man. So how do you destroy a font? Well, basically, you dump it off a bridge. And he did 170 trips at night, dumping all that lead type into the Thames River. This became legendary among designers. And in 1914, Robert Greene found 3 pieces, and he hired some pro divers. They found 147 more. The rest of them are probably part of the bridge after it was repaired. But they found all that missing type, then they digitized it, and ironically, now you can use it in a digital form. You can buy it off TypeSpec and use it in all your digital documents. Let's talk about standardization in packaging. It was all about consistency from the start. What you have to have in packaging is each package has to be visually interchangeable at the consumer level. So if you are interacting with a brand, all those brand products have to have the same kind of identity. You have to instantly see by the color, by the design, and the consistency thereof that it is the same company. So we invested a lot of time in process control to stabilize our printing processes. We got everything into spec. We measured a lot of stuff, standardized a lot of stuff. We then profiled and matched it across different processes, inks, and substrates, making the output the same all over. And the result is you have a very consistent brand expression. All of these products can be interchanged. Individual products are exactly the same. The batches look exactly the same, so you don't have any color differences or design differences between batches. And you can start matching between different production technologies. You can actually mix different ways of printing in one product line. The problem is, if all you have is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. We've forgotten to do anything else. It's everything we do is mass production. It's all despecialized. It's all optimized. It's all automated, and it's all offshored. So today, that big expensive car that you bought, and you configured it to your wishes to be an expression of your unique personality, is 100% mass produced. That expensive watch you have is 100% mass produced. Even the phone, the most intimate device that you have, the device that people don't have a problem sharing passwords on or exposing their personal data on, is 100% mass produced. In fact, the only thing that you have today that is not mass produced probably are your dental implants. Let's look at the economics of this. Does this 200-year-old thinking still make sense? Well, if you look at the evolution over time, basically printers are paper traders, right? You buy and you sell paper and you put ink on it, and that creates a margin for you. The problem is if you've got somebody who can reduce their operating costs by a little bit, he can have the same margin you have and undercut you in price. If you then drop your margin and match his operating cost, you start a chain where it ends that everybody's making just a little bit more than the operating cost, because otherwise they would stop doing it and all of the margin is gone. Nobody makes any money. So the packaging industry, you have to be aware that other printers are watching your segment because they believe that the packaging industry doesn't have any problems yet, in the same way that the commercial print has them. The problem happens when everybody's doing the same thing and everybody's running just above margin. You create a commodity. A commodity, according to Merriam-Webster, is a mass-produced, unspecialized product. It's a good or a service whose wide availability typically leads to smaller and smaller profit margins and diminishes the importance of any factor other than price. So a price buyer doesn't really care where the product comes from. The only thing he's looking at is the price of it. So we've got all of this beautiful new technology that allows us to do highly individual, highly specialized things, and we're still using it as a mini offset press. Again, if the only thing you have is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. How do we stop that? How do we start creating value, and how do we stop being a cost center? Well, first of all, we have to get involved with information management. The question here is, why do documents still carry information? If you look at a packaging document, there's a lot of information from a lot of different sources on here. What you typically get is a document that is a flat PDF with no connection to any data sources whatsoever. But what's in here is information from your DAM system, your logos and your images. There's information from your PIM system, your ingredient list, your fat content, your nutrition information. There's also information from your CMS system, like a QR code that is pointing to the marketing website and allows you to look up recipes and serving suggestions, etc. And finally, there's ERP information that has like the date, best before, and a specific barcode. And if you connect all of that to a database, you can switch the flavor with one click, because all you're doing is you're taking the same document where you've connected it to databases with information that has been managed and curated somewhere else, not locally. So packaging can be connected to all these systems, to a translation memory system, to a PIM system, a CRM and an ERP system, even to big data. And then you connect it to so many aspects of business in general, where you can start localizing per business unit, you can start localizing per geo and per language. You no longer need specific versions for product lines and products. And you could even personalize it further towards your sales channel, your individual employees, or even your individual customers. The next way to add more value is to incorporate corporate identity guidelines into the document. Now, to us, the software people, brand identity guidelines are just information like any other information. Now, good packaging protects your product. Great packaging protects your brand. What we've done so far is we've built these very complex brand identity guideline guides. We've given them to designers and hoped for the best. Usually, it doesn't end well because it's always interpreted slightly differently depending on who you give it to. We had one customer that gave us some hard numbers. The company is a Swiss pharma company, active in 90 countries with over 200 brands, and they make about 10,000 labels per year. The problem they had was there was a huge backlog in content creation and approvals. They also had a problem with brand dilution. They spent millions on brand guidelines and distribution of brand guidelines, and still it went wrong. So that led to legal risks all the way up to the lawsuits, and they have the increasing problem of counterfeiting as well. Their plan was to centralize product content with a PIM system, a DAM system, and a product lifecycle system. They wanted to automate their artwork creation with Chili Publisher, and they wanted to automate the approval process with one central platform. Mostly they wanted to reduce the error-prone human interactions, like sending files with email or FTP, and then having a designer go into a file manually and design it. The result of that is their content and design errors went from 60% to 7% overnight. Their approval cycle was reduced from 10 weeks to 1 week, and their total time to market was cut in half. That's a pretty good result. How else can we create more value? Well, we can personalize. This is a big trend we're seeing in packaging these days. Coca-Cola did a very successful campaign with their personalized bottles. You could find your name in the store, and even you could go to a website and get your own specific name put on the bottle. A number of names were not allowed. Pepsi, for example, was impossible to order that bottle. It led to an immediate increase in sales by about 8%. Now, the digital revolution has made spoiled, selfish insta-junkies out of all of us, right? We want things to be immediately available, personalized, and easily accessible. Another example is the Nutella campaign, which allowed you to print your own label for your Nutella pot. Now, they were smart and they stayed away from the logistics. You could only print out your label and then cut it out and stick it on your pot. Today, there's another campaign that allows you to truly get your own personalized pot delivered to your house. Another example was Rittersport, a German chocolate manufacturer who have a website that allows you to personalize their chocolate. So you can put on your own photograph, you can put on some text, and you can buy it for €6.70, including 19% VAT. That's a pretty good margin because the same chocolate in the store, this is actually a gas station price, would cost you anywhere between $1.50 and $2.20. So from $2.20 to $6.70, that's really good margin. Finally, let's look at logistics and packaging. Could this be the killer application for the future? If you look at packaging, the packaging on the left is optimized for a retail environment. It's big, it's colorful, it has a window in it so I can see the actual product that's in the box, and it's got a lot of text on it to describe the product so that I have a good understanding of what it actually is before I take it home and open it up. The package on the right is optimized for online shopping. It doesn't have to be colorful, it doesn't have to be big, it has to be practical, it has to be as small as possible, otherwise you're just chipping air. But it is very relevant because the way we buy is changing. This is how we buy today, right? This is the Tide button, which you can buy off Amazon in the US. You stick it to your washing machine. Every time you push it through Wi-Fi, it will order a new box of Tide for you. This is the way that shopping is evolving today. By the way, what's really cool here is you can hack these so that every time you push them, it orders a pizza. So why are we still putting labels on boxes? That seems like a very ineffective way of doing it. Amazon has taken the first steps by using frustration-free packaging, which is optimized for shipping. It's very flat, it's very cheap to send. They just take these products out of a bin, put them in a frustration-free pack, and send them out to you. And it's all optimized for online. But they're still standard boxes. What you can do as a next step is say we'll make a custom box and make it brand specific so that the brand guidelines are respected even on the logistical packaging. It can be product specific to make sure product information is accurate, to make sure the size is corresponding to the product. It can be personalized to increase relevance, and it can be logistics specific to integrate in the logistics chain. These days you basically get a big box in the mail that has a lot of carton and a lot of air in it, and somewhere deep inside is your product. Why not optimize that and make boxes that are adapted to the products that you have just put in your shopping cart? So let's wrap it up. Basically, our thinking is about 200 years old, and the economics of it no longer makes sense. There's a lot of commoditization going on, a lot of margin being lost. So we need to create more value. We have to stop thinking about cost reduction and optimization. We have to start seeing ourselves as value creators. How do we do that? First step, you connect to your customers' data sources and take away their headache of managing all that information. You integrate their corporate identity management into your documents, and that eliminates a whole other set of problems. Then you personalize to increase relevance for the end user, and you integrate with logistics. That wraps it up. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or remarks, feel free to shoot me an email at pete@chili-publish.com, and we hope to see you again in one of our next webinars.